Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lucy Beednell with the ARC of Northern Virginia, and I am absolutely tickled that we have Millie and Vida joining us here to talk about kind of the life of a case with Social Security as we look through that kind of intersection with Medicaid and disability determinations and all those things that are so critical for folks with a range of disabilities, especially developmental disabilities, often happening right at age 18 when we already have so much else going on. This is an area where we constantly get questions, and to have the right experts in the room means so much, but also is a huge testament to these women. They reached out to us to offer to give this presentation. This wasn't me, which I'm usually doing, like hounding people down, begging them to share thoughts. So what a testament to how much they really want families to be able to navigate this process and how lucky we are to have them. So without further ado, I will turn things over to them. And again, anytime put questions in the Q&A bubble. And if you're watching this presentation after the fact, you can always go to the arcofnova.org/answers and send us a question, and you'll get me directly, unless I go on vacation, which is probably not going to happen. So I'm happy to help you anytime. We always are. So ladies, please take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody. And thank you so much, Lucy, for the introduction. And thank you so much for our guests to be here and join us for a presentation on a disability process. And so the first thing that I wanted to say is that thank you so much. I'm here with Vida Cyrus, which is the Professional Relations Officer for the Disability Determination Services Office. And myself, Millie Rothwell, who is, I'm actually the area working center coordinator, and I was a former operations supervisor and also former claims specialist for Social Security. So I have been working for Social Security for 18 years. And certainly we are going to give you as much information, and we definitely want to answer lots of questions, and we will be available, if you wanted to contact us via Lucy and the ARC of Northern Virginia. To start, I wanted to first kind of give you a definition of, what Social Security considers to be a disability. For Social Security, how we define disability is a person who cannot actually work due to having a severe impairment or medical condition that prevent that individual from actually work, or perhaps and it will have to have a duration of 12 months or more, and eventually in some cases it will cause their death. Another part of the definition is that if the individual is unable to work at the substantial gainful activity, which is measured basically on a amount of money that that individual can make, and for this year in 2022, that amount of substantial gainful activity is actually 1,350 gross amount per month. Okay, and so next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to mention is that Social Security for disability claims, we have two types of programs. We have what is called the Supplemental Security Income Program. We also have what is called the SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance. And I'm going to try to define and make a distinction between the two programs so you can have a better understanding when you're applying for disability, which program you should be applying, or perhaps you may be applying for both of them. When it comes to the SSI is a needs-based program. So this actual funds comes from general federal funding, not necessarily, of course, from the Social Security Trust Fund. SSI is actually for individuals who has very limited and low income and resources. So very important to know that. Who can actually apply for SSI? For this programs, there is no age, perhaps. Everybody can apply, including children who are actually low birth, elderly individuals, children's, youth, 18-year-olds, everybody can apply for this program as long as those individuals are actually meeting the income resources that we actually have in the limits, staying within those limits. When it comes to the second program, which is the SSDI, this program is actually based on wage earners income. So that means that if you are an individual who is working and unable to work at this point, that individuals have acquired through the process of working and paying FICA taxes or paying Social Security taxes to be insured for disability or perhaps for other programs. That SSDI program also covers and may cover the wage earners, family members such as minor children or adult disabled individuals, or even their spouses who are taking care of those children. So what things are we looking into when we talk about the SSDI? So this is actually a chart that we have in here where it provides you some information about the difference between the two programs. One is actually based on the wage earners, income, and we pay that individual based on that. And the Social Security, which is going to be the Supplemental Security Income Program, that one has nothing to do with, how much you earned and whether the person is working. An individual can apply for SSI even if the person has never worked, okay? So another difference, between the SSDI and the Supplemental Security Income is that, for SSI, we need to always look at income and resources and also living arrangements. The other one doesn't care whether you have millions of dollars in the bank or you have tons of resources, because we have to determine at that point whether that individual under the SSDI is actually insured to receive those benefits. And that's something that Social Security will make that decision. And I would like to also mention that I don't want anybody to be discouraged to apply for disability benefits, and Social Security will be able to determine which program are you going to be eligible for. And next, let's go a little bit more in depth about what SSI looks for, okay? And what is exactly are those, income resources and living arrangements, and give you some examples about what we look for. When it comes to income, we actually have to be looking into what is called earned income and unearned income. So all that combined is actually income. So we have to look at all that. For earned income, we look at the individual's, actual earnings. We're also going to be looking at what is called the net income from self-employment. We're also going to be looking at individuals in, if they are working for shelter workshop, the money that he's getting paid for whatever piece or whatever work they do during that, workshop. When it comes to unearned income, we're looking at pretty much everything and anything that you may be able to receive or you are receiving. For example, Social Security benefits. It could be veterans, benefits. It could be disability or retirement. It could be unemployment benefits. When it comes to interest, we actually, if it's included in the bank accounts, we're actually not going to be looking so much about into that. But any interest that you receive, from money market accounts, from pensions and things of that nature. And of course, we're also going to be looking about cash from family and friends. Just make sure that when you are applying for supplemental security benefits, that when you are reporting any type of cash coming from family and friends, that sometimes, you don't have to really report if you're getting a gift from, a birthday or something like that. We're talking more about in terms of receiving like $800 a month to help you to pay your rent and things of that nature, okay? Next, so let's talk about a little bit about resources, and keep in mind that although we're talking about a specific amount of money when it comes to resources, when it comes to other items, keep in mind that each individual in each household is a unique case. So we're going to be looking at everything that is happening within that household to determine whether we count what is called resources and how do we exclude certain resources. When it comes to resources, we're going to be looking at the individual's, bank accounts, CD accounts, IRA accounts. We're also going to be looking at stocks, bonds, 401k, anything that can be converted into liquid assets. Okay. We actually have in here also second vehicle, but also we take into consideration whether the individual has, a vehicle for a business and also has a vehicle for, medical appointments or regular things that they do throughout. So could it be that we can actually exclude 2 vehicles, maybe 3 vehicles? It will be dependent on the circumstances, what's the actual use of those vehicles. When it comes to life insurance, what we're looking at is we're looking at what is called the cash surrender value of those life insurance. So some life insurance doesn't have it, some other ones they do. So we want to make sure that they don't exceed the individual limits or the couple's limits. Okay. When it comes to property, we never count if you live in your home. We're not going to count any type of equity that, from your own home. If you have, a second home or something like that, and that home is actually for foreclosure, or you still owe more than what the market value state that is, value that property, then that means that you really don't have equity on the second property. So although Social Security have a specific limits, everybody has a different, issue or perhaps, situation that we're going to look independently, and not always it fits this this type of incomes or resources. Okay, so don't be discouraged about applying just because it says you only can have 2,000 or you only can have 3,000, per couples. When it comes to things that we're going to exclude, is always going to be excluded the home that you live, your first vehicle, and we also going to exclude any burial plots, for the family, or anything like that. We are going to be excluding. We're also going to be excluding also any type of funds that you have set aside for burials and things like that. So make sure that when you open an account, you can actually title that account for burial funds instead, and you can actually provide us that information during the application process. Okay. And let's talk about a little bit more about what is called the living arrangements. Living arrangement is very important. And also that is actually a determining factor about what is going to be the amount of money that perhaps we may be able to pay that individual when they are actually eligible for SSI benefits. So one thing that I wanted to let them know is that when it comes to living arrangements, we're going to be looking into whether the person is able to pay their own rent and their own mortgage, whether the individual is actually living with family members and unable to repay or pay rent or their fair share within that home. And that's something that we're going to determine during the application process. So nothing that you have to worry about it. We definitely want to encourage everybody to apply for SSI and or SSDI and let Social Security make that determination. Okay, so when it comes to when this individual is able to apply for disability, I always tell individual, don't wait to get an answer from this person, immediately that you determine that you are unable to work or don't have, you have a medical situation that prevents you from working and is something very serious and severe, definitely apply for disability. Don't wait, just make sure you apply. Let Social Security determine, which programs you're going to be actually eligible for. Okay. When it comes to how are you going to be, who can actually apply and how are you going to apply for SSI? You know what? You can apply for SSI. I would like to encourage everybody to apply for SSI or for SSDI or for disability in general online. But also want to, to let you know that if an individual is going to be applying for disability online, the individuals who are 18, 65 and older, U.S. citizens, married, couples, can apply online. Also, we have individuals who are actually lawful permanent residents or immigrants that comes into the United States that has, we have about 7+ categories where the individual can apply for SSI or is eligible to apply for SSI, right? And we would like to encourage them also to contact Social Security to determine, whether that individual is actually eligible to apply. So, so we have, a little bit, for everybody, when it comes to the SSI program. So we would like to also encourage individuals who actually has a need to apply for children also to apply online and complete the disability report for those children. And the application process will have to go, we will have to schedule you for an appointment, whether it's actually going to be in person or perhaps, over the phone, because the offices are having a little bit constraints in a way that, how many people they can see in the office, how many staff do we have. We'll encourage everybody to try as much as possible to use the online services and also to use the actually telephone appointments. I think it's going to be very successful when we do that. And next. And so what happened next when it comes to actually the disability process? So when you are ready and you determine, I need to apply for disability, you contact Social Security, you either schedule an appointment or you file online. And what's going to happen is that once we actually determine that you are eligible for disability benefits, we are going to be putting all that package together. We're going to obtain the medical information, and then we are going to actually have, forms for you to sign. You can also attest it over the phone, and or you can, sign those forms, with wet signature and send it to the office. We recommend that people attest to those forms, on, where they are on the phone or online. And then we're going to send that claim itself to the state agency, which is the Disability Determination Services, which Ms. Vida Cyrus works for that, the state agency, and they are going to be able to look at the entire, process, and they are going to make a determination on your case. Certainly, it's very, very, very important that you let us know and provide us with all your medical sources. Also provide us with your medical diagnosis. Also, I will recommend the individuals when they go to the medical and they visit their doctors to make sure that they actually articulate and provide the doctors with information about how they're feeling, what is happening, and so that they can document their record properly and correctly. Sometimes when we go to the doctor, I always say this to everybody, is that the first thing that the doctor say, how are you? And the first thing that the person says, oh, I'm fantastic, I'm doing great. So that's exactly what the doctor is going to write actually in your medical report. See, this individual looks healthy, came in the office, the person is feeling good, and it looks great. So make sure that you provide your medical professional with, information about how you're feeling, what is going on with your body, what changes you are experiencing, and limitations that you have. It's very important to have that recorded in your medical evidence. And maybe perhaps, Vida can, provide us a little bit more information about that too as well. But it is important to have that always documented. If you don't have medical sources because you have no financial support, or you don't have medical insurance, and you haven't seen a doctor, there's other things that we utilize, and we provide that individual the opportunity to be seen by a doctor. And this is something that is arranged by the Disability Determination Services. And perhaps Vida, I don't know whether you want to chime in at this time and say something about that.
Yeah, I can talk more about the disability process. So like Millie mentioned, once everything is done with Social Security, they send the case to the DDS, which is our office is located in Fairfax. We have 4 offices in Virginia: Fairfax, Norfolk, Roanoke, and Richmond. So wherever the location the person lives closest to, that's where the case will be sent. But we do share workloads through the 4 offices, so the case could be transferred to another office, but it would still get the same attention as if the case was being worked on by someone here in the Fairfax office. So like Millie mentioned, if the person hasn't had any medical treatment, like there's no health insurance, there's no money, they didn't know they needed to get treatment, because sometimes that's kind of a symptom of a mental condition. You don't think anything's wrong with you, therefore you're not going to get any treatment. So if there's nothing, we need to send the person to see one of our doctors, because we need objective medical evidence in order to make a medical decision. We have doctors throughout the state. One of my job duties is to recruit doctors, optometrists, ophthalmologists, speech language pathologists, in the community to do these exams for us. We don't pay a lot of money. So these people who do these exams are really doing it for the community and for the greater good. So I do appreciate them tremendously. Since COVID started, we're now able to do telehealth exams. These are only for mental status exams only. So that's just a mental exam. No testing is involved with that. We're not doing any physical telehealth. It's just strictly mental telehealth. And like I mentioned, we have physical exams. These are face-to-face. We have a speech language pathologist who is virtual, and we have some face-to-face as well in other parts of Virginia, but she's really good, the virtual speech language pathologist. SSA just allowed us to do that. I think it was this year. We have vision doctors around as well. If the person has a vision impairment, we'll send them to one of our optometrists or ophthalmologists for an exam. And if there's hearing issues, we have an ENT doctor located in Richmond, and we have one in another part of Virginia as well that we can send them to. So once DDS gets the case, we're going to request the medical records. Like Millie mentioned, we're going to, if the person went to see Dr. Smith over here, Dr. Jones over there, we're going to get those records. We pay $15 for the records. Sometimes, unfortunately, some mental health providers, they don't want $15, they want $200. Or they want to be paid up front. And we're a government agency, we cannot prepay for anything. So we need to get the service first, which would be the medical records, and then we would pay 30 days after the fact. So when we encounter a provider, fortunately, there's not too many who want payment up first, or who want literally $200 to send us like 10 pages of records. Me and my team, we have a process. We'll call the provider, we'll talk to them, we'll plead, can you please, this is helping out your patient. And, if they get approved for benefits and they'll start seeing you more, they'll be able to pay their bills. We really try to play off of that. And that, I want to say, probably about 99% of the time that works. But there are some individuals, unfortunately, who don't want to hear it. And, they want an excessive amount of money. So in those cases, we're not able to get those records. But luckily, if we're not able to get records, sometimes people will go to doctors, they don't remember where they've gone, or it's been so long ago, or whatever the case is. We have this process in place. Like I mentioned, we'll send the claimants to see one of our doctors. DDS pays for everything. We do reimburse for travel expenses. So the claimant would just need to fill out this travel form, which is very, very easy to fill out. It's not complicated at all. Mail it back, and then we would mail them a check 30 days after we get that form back. Just wanted to also kind of talk about the process here at DDS. Once we get the case, we're always going to be looking for that SGA. Millie mentioned that earlier, substantial gainful activity. If the person is working and making over $1,350 a month for this year, every year, for most part, that amount increases. If they're working and making more than that amount of money, they cannot apply for disability benefits. So when we get our case, we're going to be looking for some mention of them working. That's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to then look through the medical records. We're going to see if they have a severe impairment. So a severe impairment is some kind of impairment that's going to cause you some issues in your functioning. Just having a hangnail, that's not a severe impairment. So, this has to cause some kind of something, preventing you from working or kind of functioning throughout your day. So for the most part, the claimant's allegations are severe. So we're going to then go on to our next step, is we're going to look to see if they meet or equal listing. Social Security has what's called a blue book of listing, where all body systems are listed and the impairments under those body systems that are really bad. And if you meet this criteria, then you're going to be approved. So some examples for impairments in the blue book listings could be if you're on chronic renal dialysis, if you're legally blind, which, well, for our purposes, 20/200 vision, or you have really reduced visual fields. If you're intellectually disabled and you have a really low IQ score. So those are some examples. If you have that, we don't have to dig, we don't have to get a whole bunch of medical records, because it's very obviously clear that this person meets the definition of Social Security disability. In all 50 states, Puerto Rico, DC, Guam, we all have access to these Blue Book listings. So we will all refer to them when we're trying to make these medical decisions. So if the person's impairment is not that bad off, but it's pretty bad, we're going to go on to the next step, and we're going to look to see, are they able, after we read everything, we've written everything up, we're going to look to see, are they able to do work they've done in the past? Because Social Security disability is a work-based program. Essentially, if you're an adult, you're saying, I'm so disabled, I cannot do work I've done before or do any other kinds of work. So we need to look at the work the person has done in the past to see, based upon what the objective evidence shows, can they go back to that work? If they're not able to, for whatever reason, maybe their past work was like in construction, a lot of lifting and carrying and things like that, but they have really bad arthritis in their knees, or they have like reduced vision, they can't go back to that work, because you can't, if you're having trouble walking, you can't do this heavy lifting work. And if you're having trouble seeing, you're gonna, you should not be around hazards and things like that. So then we're going to go on to our next step to see, are they able to do other types of work? So we're going to look into that depending on the age, work they've done in the past, things like that, to determine if they can do other types of work. So we're going to use all the medical records we've received. We're going to use some of the forms that Millie mentioned earlier. We send out what's called a function report. It's a very lengthy form, but it kind of captures everything, because we're wanting to see how the person is functioning on a day-to-day basis. So some of the questions might be, are you able to bathe yourself? Do you drive? Can you go to the grocery store? Do you have problems communicating with other people? We kind of want to get a sense of how this person functions on a day-to-day basis. And that's all subjective. I keep mentioning objective evidence. We need both, because both of them kind of need to make sense. If someone is saying, I have fine, I have no issues, I can go to the store, I can do this and do that, but the records from the doctors are saying a different story, we need to reconcile, everything kind of needs to make sense. And also we're going to ask them to fill out a work history form we need all the jobs they've done in the last 15 years, because we do need that when we're making our medical decision. And just lastly, Millie mentioned this when she was talking about the resources and stuff. Every case is different, and it's looked at independently. Just like a DDS, every case is different. Just because you might know someone who got disability because of this, and you feel like you have the same situation, it might not be the case, because we're looking at, Social Security, they're going to look at the financial side, they're going to look at all of those things, which can play an effect, if the person is even eligible for benefits. And then on our side, just because two people have arthritis, it doesn't mean they're going to present the same way or have the same effects or the same restrictions. So there's no blanket anything. We have to look at the person individually, look at all their symptoms, to kind of look at it as a holistic kind of thing, where we're looking at everything to make our medical decisions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vida, for that explanation. And certainly I would like to also clarify a couple of things in regards of the substantial gainful activity. What I wanted to say to everybody, that sometimes we have individuals who are actually working and making perhaps $13.50 or a little bit more. So don't be discouraged about not thinking that you're not eligible, or you're not going to be able to be eligible. Keep in mind that we also have, what we call work incentive. So if the individual is actually working and making a little bit more than that, then we actually going to be looking into whether that individual perhaps may have what we call income work related expenses. And that means that it could be that the individual doesn't have a vehicle, but takes, an Uber, or takes a taxi cab, or perhaps the person is actually has some out-of-pocket expenses that they're paying for medications and treatment and things like that. So that we are going to be using at the initial level, we're going to be using all those work incentive, and we're also going to use those income work related expenses to kind of reduce that substantial gainful activity to below that $13.50. But we need proof. We need something tangible that we can actually see and determine whether we can actually say, hey, this individual is actually has expensive, reduces the income, and then we can send that application to DDS explaining all that, so they won't have to worry about, having to, request more information about their work activity for that individual. So if in fact you're making a little bit more than $13.50, that will not impede you to apply if you have anything related to your disability that you have to pay out of pockets when it comes to that, and we will use that. But make sure that you articulate that information to the claim specialist when you are, talking to them and letting them know. If that person is unaware, just simply, mention that you came into this meeting and then you learned something about that, and that you would like to provide, that information and the proof that you do have out-of-pocket expensive. So, and because we want everybody to have the, opportunities to, that they can apply for disability. So let's talk about a little bit more about the responsibilities about once we take your application, once we send this to the medical determination office, they're going to render a decision whether it's actually you're going to be allowed or that you meet the criteria for the disability. And Social Security is going to receive an alert from, the disability determination services, in which, we are going to see that you're going to be allowed or denied. Keep in mind that if you receive a denial, the letter is going to specify to you that you have either 30 days or 60 days to appeal that decision. I always encourage the individual to always appeal. You don't lose absolutely nothing with appealing your decision. And could it be that the individual did not provide a certain medical sources, and now they do have more information, or they remember more, and they can provide us more information so that the medical determination office can actually make a solid and final determination on their cases. So don't feel discouraged because you receive a letter. I think there is a myth out there that, they say that, the third time is the charm. You're going to be denied in the first and the second level, and it's not into the third level that you actually, are approved. What it is that they're going to have to look at the entire record. They're going to look at your education, your ability to work, your medical conditions, or anything that may impede you to work or to do something, and based on that, we're going to continue to review your case. Don't be discouraged and follow through with your appeals rights, because that's your right to appeal any decision if you feel that we actually did not get the entire picture. Okay, and we will definitely send it back to the medical determination office, and if it's at a different level of the hearings level, we will send it to a judge so they can actually review and see your case and your entire record. When it comes to with that also, you have also responsibility with Social Security. When it comes to Social Security, and if you're approved, then you have responsibilities with Social Security, and that is that you have to always report any changes with SSI, because SSI is a very complex and maybe convoluted perhaps. You have to report, if you move, if you get a job, if you are, receiving, assistance from the state, or anything related to income, resources, and also living arrangements, because that affects what amount we can pay you. And if something changes with your living arrangements or your income or resources, or maybe the family composition, then it may affect what SSI can pay you. Very important. What about if the person, perhaps, get arrested and is actually incarcerated or waiting or something like that? Those are things that you need to report to Social Security if you're getting, either SSDI or SSI. When it comes to getting married, you also have to report that to us too, because then at that point it changes, and we have to look into the income and resources of the other individuals who join you as a husband or wife. What if you are actually, holding out? Holding out is actually living with another person where you consider yourself to be, married through, your friends and, society and everybody else. Okay. So all that, changes, what amount we can pay you. If you're working, you have to report also your wages. That's very important. And there's many ways that you can do all that. Now, we actually were talking a little bit about working and while you're receiving benefits, or even working where you're trying to apply for disability. And I would like to touch a little bit about this because this is very important. Social Security is actually one of the agencies who provides the disabled individual with an opportunity to reincorporate themselves back into, working and earning money. And we give you a lot of incentive for you to be able to do that. And the most important things out of all this is understanding what are exactly those work incentives that Social Security provides for each and every one of us and those individuals, who are disabled. And one of the things that's very important is that, and that's part of my job, and that's what I oversee for this entire area, is the making sure that our offices or technicians are really applying work incentive in every moment, whether it's to initial claims or it is after you receive your benefits and you decide that you want to go to work. So we also have what is called employment network, and those individuals are helping disabled individuals to actually work and explain to them what work incentive we have available to you guys. So part of those work incentives are this: we offer the disabled individual 9 months work trial. And that means that individual is able to work for 9 consecutive or 9 months. Could it be, consecutively? Maybe. It doesn't have to be, right? So if that individual has the opportunity to work for 9 months, make, whatever amount, thousands of dollars if they want to. And what we want is that individual to be able to say, hey, I think for 9 months I can work and I can, be independent from receiving disability benefits. Okay. But then you will have also another 36 months where we actually extend that period and we determine whether you actually are making that $13.50 per month. So what it means that I'm still,
Sorry.
are you able to hear me? So what it means is that individual can actually earn during the extended period of eligibility either less or more than their $13.50 per month, right? But we also going to be taking into consideration the what is called the income work related expenses. So that means that even if you're making $1,400 or $1,500 per month, that individual can provide us proof of any out-of-pocket expensive, medical. It could be prescriptions that are paying out of pocket. What if that individual needs a cane? What if they need a wheelchair? What if an agency is actually helping and assisting this individual to have their own business? For example, an agency can provide the individual with a laptop, with a Microsoft, Office. It can provide you with, equipment. And even though the agency is paying for those expenses, that disabled individual can claim those expenses as theirs, and we have to take that into consideration to reduce those earnings even further than the $13.50 per month. So those are things that you may want to take advantage of, inquire about through our employment support network that we have available and through the ticket to work, so you can actually become independent and secure about what you're doing. Of course, if the individual is able to engage and work more and is successful, is having a great time working, then what's going to happen is that we will suspend benefits. But that individual will have also a recourse on that. If the person completes the 36 months after working, and that person is actually terminated for benefits, that individual, if something happens within that period of time, that individual can come back to Social Security and request those benefits to be reinstated. So that's very important, because at that point, you don't have to go through all the process of filing a brand new claim. All what we do is we're going to complete some paperwork. You're going to request Medicare to be, to continue. You're also going to request provisional payments, which we do, for 6 months or more. And while we actually send the case back to DDS and, to actually review and render a brand new decision for you, for the disabled individual. We also going to have, even throughout the period in which you are suspended for benefits in the extended period for the 36 months, that individual can continue to receive Medicare. But the only difference is that if you are suspended for benefits, you will have to pay Medicare out of your own pocket, okay, at the same rate that you were paying before. But if you are terminated, then at that point, you also can have Medicare even extended for 93 months. So that's something that, is important for the individuals to know, because medical insurance is very important for individuals who are disabled, and to continue that. Of course, if you're working and your employer provides you with the medical insurance and you don't want to get, pay for Medicare, you can also decline to have Medicare if it is actually less, expensive than Medicare. Medicare nowadays is actually a little bit more competitive, and also provides very similar, services and kind of like co-payments similar to the market, insurance that they provide. So if you want to have Medicare, you can have Medicare. If you don't need Medicare, you can decline Medicare at that point, as long as you have, of course, insurance via, your new employer. And there's a lot more that we provide to the working disabled individual. And that is that not only that if you are working for an employer who provides you with special conditions or provides you with subsidies, for example, that individual is actually getting resting periods, or that individual has a job coaching, somebody who helps them and teach them how to do certain, tasks, that individual is considered to be subsidized. So we do request, subsidy information and special conditions through the employers and the employment network. Individuals, and we utilize that information to kind of reduce those earnings for that individual, and making sure that that person stays below the substantial gainful activity. So we will need that individual to articulate to us that, hey, you know what, I think I'm getting subsidy in here. My job, is providing me with a job coach. And, once you give us that information, we are going to make an effort to contact, the job and your direct supervisor, so they can complete some paperwork for us. Okay. There's also other incentives that are very, very good. For example, if you're working and you actually have made only 6 months of what is called substantial gainful activity, so we can actually disregard those 6 months of substantial gainful activity, and we can actually consider that what is called an unsuccessful work attempt. Okay, so but if that individual, instead of having 6 months, that person works 9 months, we know that that person actually, we cannot apply the unsuccessful work attempt. So there's a lot of wonderful work incentive that we provide provide. We also provide what is called PASS, which is a plan to achieve self-support. Individuals can provide us an application and the desire to, go to college, go to the university and things like that, save enough money, and we're not going to count that against them. And there's many more, especially for SSI. It's going to be a student exclusion if the person is actually working and is still in school. We also going to, we also have what is called able accounts, where the individual can set aside income or money that they earned, either because they have, extraordinary, medical expenses, and that money is going to be utilized for things of that nature, or even for education. So, you can actually have more money than the resources that we are actually talking about, the 2,000 or the 3,000 per couple, because, if you establish an able account, those funds are not actually counted against you. Okay. And we have also what is called, that I explained, the expedited reinstatement, where you can request to be reinstated and receive, provisional payments, and at the same time also have Medicare reinstated for you guys. So, I know that this is a lot of information for all of you guys, and we have many more rules and work incentives that we would like to share with you guys. So if there's anything that you do not understand about that, I am actually the right person to contact, and you can do it through sending an email through the ARC of Northern Virginia, or you can send it to us. I'm actually showing right now a little diagram in here so you can see how work incentive works for that disabled individual. As you can see in this diagram in here, you're going to have 9 months, trial work period where you can, determine, and you're going to show whether you can make it out there. Okay. During the trial work period, it's important to mention that we do not apply what is called work incentive. Work incentives will start shortly after, in the month after you comply with the 9th month of that trial work period. And thereafter, that individual, although we have only 36 months that we provide that individual as an extended period, make no mistake that those individuals, the vast majority of them, may not actually make substantial, and we can continue to apply, unsuccessful work attempt. We can continue to apply subsidy. We can continue to apply, special conditions for that individual, and that individual can have, 157, extended period of eligibility months. Or that person may never complete, their full, period of the extended period of eligibility, and that person can continue to receive disability and work at the same time. Now, for individuals who are blind, keep in mind the substantial gainful activity is a little bit much higher than the 1350. So those individuals will be able to have a little bit more leeway when it comes to actually working. So those individuals can make up to 2,260 per month. And and that's actually considered under. So, and when it comes to the trial work period, the amount that individual can make, they can make as much as they want to, but what we're looking at is that individual making at least, if not $970 per month or more. Of course, at that point, during the trial work period, no individual will be charged with an overpayment, because that's actually your trial work period. And we really want you to work and make as much as you want to. Once you reach the 10th month, at that point, we want to remain a little bit below the $1,350 per month. And so there's a lot of things that Social Security can do for that individual. So take advantage of, the ticket to work, take advantage of also other things that Social Security is provided for the individual. Another thing that is very, very important to mention to you guys is that when the individual is receiving vocational rehab, okay, and that individual perhaps is medically seized, or the medical determination office determined that the person may not, is no longer meeting the disability criteria. When you are receiving vocational rehab services, it doesn't matter whether it's through the state or whatever it is that you are receiving, that individual can continue to receive disability payments because that individual is protected on the Section 301, and that individual can continue to receive cash benefits. So that's something very important for you guys to know and to understand that. And if there's any questions, you can always contact Social Security, or you can contact me and, ask me a little bit more about that. When it comes also to individuals who are working and perhaps receiving SSDI, which is a Title II, SSI is Social Security Disability Insurance, that individual, if they lose SSI for any reason, if that individual is working and that individual loses eligibility due to income, and because that person is working, then that individual can also request the Social Security to actually use what is called the 1619B, which protects the individual and also provides for that individual to be eligible for Medicaid. So those things are very important to know if you're a case manager or if you're a parent and you have children working or the individual is working. So that's important also to report to Social Security when you're working and you exceed certain threshold, right? Because Medicaid can continue for you even when you are working or receiving SSDI and working at the same time. Very important if you lose that SSI eligibility to always, send paperwork and information about the 1619B. When it comes to Medicare, keep in mind the Medicare is a federal program. Under the federal program, it's a health insurance that is provided to individuals who are 65 and older, but also is provided to disabled individuals after that individual receives 24 months of disability payments. So Medicare will be available to those individuals, after 24 months of receiving disability. 65 and older, that's, if you have insurance through your employer and you're still working, you do not need to take Medicare at that point. However, Medicare Part A is available to you for free because, if you have paid into Social Security and you have paid, Social Security taxes, then you are eligible for that. When it comes to Medicaid, important for you guys to understand that even if you lose eligibility for SSI due to the fact that you're working, you can continue to receive Medicaid based on the 1619B program or law. So in here we have a little bit of information about, Medicare Part A, Part B, that is important for you guys to know. Also Medicare Part D, that is prescription drug plan, is important for individuals to complete the Form 1020, where they can actually request, some sort of, subsidy to pay for Medicare Part D for prescription. So individuals who have low income and resources, we're going to apply similar rules for the SSI as to for the Part D prescription drug plan. And we're going to determine the eligibility. Could it be that you need to receive 25%, 75%, 100% of subsidy for the Part D? That will be determined when you complete that form, and submit it online. And when it comes to Part A, Part B, you know that there's premiums that we have to pay for the Part B. Part A is free for the individuals who actually have worked and paid into Social Security. Part A will also be free for individuals who actually are working as a civil service employees. That's only another part of, the federal system. And also it could be also free if the individual, is eligible for Medicaid, and the state will pay for what is called the state buy-in for Medicare Part B, and perhaps may have the fundings also to pay for Part A. If the person has never been insured and needs Part A or Part B, keep in mind that it's very important for you to go directly to the Department of Social Services and kind of apply for Medicaid first, because then they will determine whether they can pay for Part B and Part A, because Part A is pretty expensive. It's like $400 and something per month, and Part B is $179. I think that this year is going to be actually be reduced a little bit less, $150 something for the year 2023. But if you have and you're eligible for the state buy-in, you can have the Part A and Part B paid by the state, because then it Medicaid will become primary and Medicare will become, well, at that point, if the state buy-in pays for that, the Medicare will become, primary at that point. Okay, so this is actually the part where we actually say that please, if you do need to apply for disability, please, try to attempt, as much as possible to do it online. Social Security is having a huge turnover, and we are actually in the process of hiring new people, and that will help us tremendously, with the, influx of so many applications and things like that. Keep in mind that Social Security is available online to apply for retirement, for also spouse benefits, disability, and Medicare also. So that's something that is available to you. If you have an opportunity to open what is called the My Social Security account, please take advantage of doing that, because that way you will be in control of your own benefits. Also, you can look at your earnings and determine whether there anything in that report is missing from your earnings, and you have the opportunity to contact Social Security and provide us those, W-2s or 1099s or self-employment, documentation, so we can add any missing income or wages that you may have, that is not showing in there, that you think that it should be, added into your Social Security statement. For individuals who are actually working with what is called the EIN numbers, because you actually had, didn't have a Social Security number, or you were working under the table and things like that. If you have filed taxes and you need to add that to the Social Security account, you can do that. You can send us information. You can send us, as long as you have a Social Security number now, we can actually add those earnings, on your record, so you can have that insurance status that you need, and also, your wages accounted for. So don't be afraid to contact Social Security when it comes to things like that, that we're here to actually help you and assist you in any way, shape, or form. And we just wanted to make sure that you guys have all the information at hand, and we try to provide you as much, as we can. But if this is a moment where, we would like to, open to any questions and anything that we can answer for you, we're here to do so. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So we'll work through some of our questions in the time we have here. And in the beginning part, when you talked about Social Security eligibility, you had mentioned that sometimes if someone has an extremely low IQ, the processing can go faster. And someone asked kind of what the threshold for that was. What does a really low IQ look like that may expedite eligibility?
I would say, I'm just going to look very quickly at the listings, which are, you're able to view them. If you just go to Google, you can search Blue Book listings, SSA, you will be able to see exactly what I'm looking at. I'm just looking very quickly. If someone has a low IQ, I would say 70 or lower, and they're having problems functioning, like problems understanding, interacting with other people, maintaining concentration, persistence, and maintaining pace as well. So you kind of, like I mentioned earlier, it's the whole thing. Because I've seen people with low IQ scores but able to function, take care of their personal needs, go grocery shopping, things like that. So, we have to kind of look at how the person is functioning with whatever the IQ score that they have.
That's really helpful. And then we had another question about diagnosis kind of based upon mental health needs. If we see someone with episodic mental health needs, so maybe we have long periods of time, a couple of months at a time, where the person is doing well, but then we cycle in and out of crisis, obviously making it very difficult to maintain a job. Is this someone who should still apply and think they may be eligible?
Yeah, I would just, like Millie said, whenever I get a question like that, I just say apply. I tell everyone to apply. But in that example, yeah, because we do see that the person does well for a while, and after a couple months, they just, they're not doing so well, and then they can't maintain the job, then they get fired, and it's just a vicious cycle that they're going through. So yes, I would definitely recommend that person apply for benefits. Keep good notes, maybe even getting would be helpful if we can get like even a contact number from like one of their employers to show that, okay, Johnny, he was doing well, but then, we had a bad customer that came in and that just threw Johnny off and he had a meltdown, something like that, to kind of really show that. We send out, I mentioned we sent out a function report. We also send out a third party function report, which we want someone who knows that person to fill it out. It's very similar questions, but it's from another person's perspective as well. So that's also very helpful.
Okay,
In
that's
addition,
great.
I just wanted to add one more thing to that, and that is that Social Security is actually doing an outreach to organizations and anyone for vulnerable population and people facing barriers. And one of those categories also includes people who actually are suffering from, any type of mental illness and things like that, to please reach out and file for disability. We want to hear from you guys, and definitely anything combined, medical issues, will help and assist, with the disability process and getting that, decision that we really want for them.
That's awesome. And then we had a couple of questions about documents. What documents do I need to apply or to show the person's rent, those kinds of things? Is there a place folks could look to find the documents they should have ready when they're looking at applying for benefits?
When it comes to documentation, either referring to medical documentation, because we don't want people to go into engaging into spending money and requesting medical records, because we are going to do that for them. We definitely will make every effort to do that. However, there is some, if you're applying as for a child, and sometimes, you're going to get the IEP from the teachers or anything like that. If you have it readily available, it doesn't cost you any money, please, make sure that with the application you submit that, or during your prior to your appointment, you send that paperwork to Social Security, and so they can have it readily to send to the medical determination office. So it's important to do that. When it comes to other forms, most of the forms for the disability process itself is actually, you're going to find it on the website, under disability. So you can apply for, as an adult, you're going to have every single form that you needed to file online. Otherwise, if you have an appointment over the phone, that individual, the claim specialist, is going to complete every single form over the phone with you.
Thank you. And then I know this question has a varied answer, but even a range about how long would someone expect the decision process to take from the time they first apply?
So let's see, it varies, however, I think that we are, although Social Security is struggling a little bit, I think that the determination service is actually, I will say within 3 to 6 months, it will depend. So sometimes we can get it within 3 months, sometimes, 6 months. So it will depend about all the information and how soon we can send it to the medical determination office.
And I just kind of wanted to add on the disability end, we don't like to give timeframes because it varies so much. Mm-hmm. If we mail out forms, we give the person 10 days to send them back. So if we don't get them back in 10 days, we're calling, hey, where are those forms? We don't hear from them, we're going to mail a letter. That's another 10 days. They call on day 9. We're starting the process all over again. So it's already 2 to 3 weeks and we haven't even really done anything. We need to get the medical records, especially during COVID, we could get hardly anything. It was taking weeks and weeks to get medical records. We could not get school records because the schools were closed. So that delayed all the things. We didn't have a lot of doctors doing exams for us because of COVID. So that it took delays in getting appointments scheduled. So, I mean, there's so many different factors and so many things that can determine what would make the process go quicker or take a longer period of time. But my recommendation to expedite as much as possible, send the forms in on time, keep in touch with your caseworker. I would even recommend calling every 2 weeks. Hey, just want to check in. Is there anything else you need me to do? What's the status? Just so that nothing falls through the cracks. Go to the appointments if DDS schedules them. If you can't make the appointment, let us know as soon as possible so that we can reschedule. Just keep in good communication. That would definitely help things move along a lot quicker.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to add to that is that, sometimes, cases are denied, but not necessarily because it doesn't have, the medical information, or perhaps because that person doesn't have merit or it doesn't, have the medical diagnosis. It's because sometimes we do not receive the forms that we send out to follow up with that individual. So if you are getting function reports for either children's or adult or third party, please, respond, comes to Social Security, contact somebody and say, hey, I'm sending in, I'm just a little bit delayed. Let us know so we can actually hold on and we don't deny your case because we don't have sufficient evidence to make a decision. So very important to keep up with that.
Thank you. And I see that we're pretty much out of time here. So Millie had so generously offered that I will send out a follow-up to everybody, and you are welcome to reply to me with questions that I can share back out with folks. So if you didn't have a chance to get the answer to your question today, and if it's not in the follow-up information that I send, and I'll include both the recording from today and some other resources we have on YouTube on our website, some kind of quick sheet, please feel free to send me questions, and we're always happy to help you. I just wanted to give a huge thank you and round of applause to our presenters through working through what's just a very tricky topic, but so very needed. And thank everyone so much for being here with us today. Thank you all.
Thank you.